This is the Board of Commissioners special meeting this is the 27th at 1 o'clock, and if we could have a roll call, please.
Rennie?
Here.
Inman?
Here.
Thomas?
Here.
Wheelock?
Yes, ma'am.
Max Bauer? Here. Lathrop?
Here.
Lemko?
Here. First is public comment. Wait a minute, she's going to read the rules. Excuse me.
Yeah, we want to make sure you follow the rules, Jason. That would be a unique experience.
Yes, and good luck with that, Sonny.
Any person shall be permitted to address a meeting of the Board of Commissioners which is required to be open to the public under the provisions of the Michigan Opens Meetings Act, as amended. Public comment shall be carried out in accordance with the following board rules and procedures. A, any person wishing to address the board shall state his or her name and address. B, no person shall be allowed to speak more than once on the same matter, excluding time needed to answer commissioners' questions. The chairman shall control the amount of time each person shall be allowed to speak, which shall not exceed 3 minutes. Chairperson may at his or her discretion extend the amount of time any person is allowed to speak.
Okay, Jason.
I guess I'm on. Jason Gilman, 933 Avenue D, East Bay Township. I prepared, I've written this down just so it's clear and you can get on with your process as soon as possible. I think the problem that you're facing is that this county has had too much money for too many years. Administrations and commissioners have for too long asked, can we afford this? Rather than, is ownership of this appropriate? Or is this the proper function of county government? When money is available, the more critical question was ignored for the typical answer of yes, and imagine all the good it will do. Imagine that. Such imagining has somehow perched the importance of planned recreational activities operated by government a bit higher than it deserves. Such imagining has allowed the county to enter into covenants limiting the use of resources to their fullest. Such imagining pretends that a top-down, this is good for you, government program is a substitute for demand-based outcomes. Such imagining has cost taxpayers millions in the past decade in Grand Traverse County alone. Yes, there was an S at the end of that millions. While you consider what is important or not within the budgeting process, consider first why local government exists and is necessary. It allows a community to collectively fulfill certain needs that no individual can through its authority and its resources. Think policing, roads, street management, dispute settlements, community emergency management, utilities access management, and limited ownership of properties and lands for community gathering. It is not to entertain. It is not to be a health club. It is not meant to be a garden or farm club. It is not to manipulate business conditions. It is not to be a jobs provider. It is not to be a subjective planner and arbiter of an attractive community. All of these things are available outside of government. They're not only available, but happen with greater successes in the free and open market. When a program operated by government is bad, we can certainly walk away. Yet we still reward its implementation by paying for it forevermore. Or even worse, paying more to improve it so it doesn't suck as bad. In free markets, bad things will go away successively until good things take their place. And then there is land owned by our county, where we expend monies to maintain and justify their ownership. Ownership, by the way, which costs taxpayers twice. Private ownership, if allowed, however, will ultimately find a best use and provide tax revenues, lowering the burden on all other taxpayers. I believe we know these things instinctively. Yet the pretty, shiny, precious trinkets of possibilities made possible through taxes, grants, and social manipulation have corrupted our value systems, and priorities evaluation become a distorted mess. And lastly, we have the elephant in the room. You're considering borrowing money to smooth out your current financial crisis. The debt incurred through a few decades of contracts agreed by previous administrations and commissioners and ignored for the most part until the last couple years is now cramping your style. We can pay this now by borrowing and making our children pay for it, or we can face it head on, negotiate with the retirement system, for a more pay-as-you-go system or plan. The latter option requires you to consider what is truly the legitimate function of the county. And as I have alluded to already, previously fat budgets, no longer available, have left some relatively low-hanging fruit. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And if you could, I've got an extra copy.
Go to the clerk, please. Carl? Thank you. Is this part of your email, Jason? Was this on your email?
It is.
Yeah, I got it.
Carl Defoe, 6505 Mission Ridge, Traverse City. Let me say, first of all, I strongly disagree with Mr. Gilman's premises and comments. I think many, both in the business community and people like ourselves, would also disagree. So, with that said, I'm going to read an email that I sent to all commissioners, in case you haven't had a chance to read it. Sent this yesterday. Dear Commissioners, re Parks and Recreation Department and 2014 budget. Parks and Rec Department. My wife and I have been regular lap swimmers at the Civic Center pool since retiring to Traverse City in 1998. I swim a half mile every day, Monday through Friday, 6:30 a.m. to 7:10 a.m. My wife swims laps 3 mornings and does water aerobics 4 mornings. I'm 79, Cynthia's 81. Our doctors have both recommended swimming for me because it is excellent for cardio rehab and prevention. Stent, August 2013. Neuropathy, peripheral arterial disease, disc problems, L4 and 5 removed, and spinal stenosis. More importantly, because I've had to stop 4 to 5 days per week of downhill skiing. Non-weight-bearing water aerobics and laps are essential for Cynthia because of her heart, aorta, and mitral valves replaced, 2 knees and a hip replacement, and an ankle fusion. I totally agree with and won't repeat the many reasons as stated and spoken by others why, 1, the pool should not be closed, 2, the Parks and Rec Department should not be eliminated, nor 3, should the Parks and Rec Department be closed and a facilities management company contracted to manage the pool. You've seen the overwhelming support by pool users, including Cynthia and I, at the November 14th meeting of a fee increase to help reduce the deficit. 2014 budget. I urge that you approve sale of $45 million of pension bonds as recommended both by Administrator Benda, Finance Director Dean Bott, and presentation by Warren Kramer of Robert W. Baird and Company. While I'm no financial expert, I believe the benefits of the bond sale, including sufficient money for the projected $900,000 2014 deficit, more than outweigh the risk. We are totally against putting this to a, quote, vote of the people, end quote, as asked in Dr. Dan Lathrop's green flyer that was attached to our screen door today. That was yesterday. Here it is, everyone to see. Thank you.
Thank you, Carl.
You did that.
Next,
You did that?
please.
Yeah.
Third time, I'm getting better.
Welcome back.
Thank you. My name is Kathy Coffin-Sheard. I reside at 415 West 7th Street in Traverse City. I'm the master swim coach at the pool and work with a large adult community in our city. I just would like to briefly address the pool program fees and its inaccuracies that were stated last week. Here are the facts. The pool fees are competitive fees. Currently, it's $221 for a single person to be a member of the pool. Down the street, there's a local gymnasium health club that charges $200 for a year for the same as a comp. I looked at that, and they offer a marketing they offer on Black Fridays, they offer a deal as well as what was brought up with the Up North Media offering the deal that we offer $50 at the parks, through Parks and Rec only the beginning of the month in January. Our county residents are also charged, non-county residents are also charged higher fees to come to the pool. Another comparison, or another thing that I looked at, was that Crystal Mountain Ski Resort also offers passes to seniors and youth at discounted rates, just like the Easling Pool does. Why wouldn't we offer our senior and our youth population these prices that keep them healthy and active and connected to the community? The master's fees. The master's fees are on our website that I've developed with one of the sons of our program, grandtraversemasters.org. Please visit it. The rates are going up December 1st. We have 5 different fee structures that are offered. The rates are actually $12.50 a month, in addition to a Civic Center membership. You have to become a member of the Civic Center for one of these fee structures. The monthly total in county actually rounds out to $30.90 per person per month, up to $37 per person per month to join the Master's Swim program. Seniors are offered a rate at $25.60 a month. I looked and spent a lot of time looking at this fee structure as compared to other Master Swimming's fees, and it is a affordable fee that gets our members in the door. Again, I stated before, I started with 2. I have over 75 people on the team now, and I reach out to over 100 people in this population a year. Mr. Jones, point number 5, Mr. Jones, Miss Erickson, and Marilyn Zielinski are part of our team at the Civic Center and part of Parks and Rec in terms of keeping us together as a little beehive that takes care of a lot of people. They're all part of my contract development, my pool support, and the management at the pool. As the master programs develops, Mr. Jones not only requests but requires me to state my goals and my visions for the program. This is a crucial reason why the program has flourished and will keep flourishing through our community. Lastly, please listen to your financial advisors. And like Carl, I am no financial advisor, and I'm not an analyst. I have lived, my husband was a financial analyst in the Loop in Chicago for 14 years. I know spreadsheets. I'm not great at them, but I will let you know that please let them guide you with their expertise and their due diligence and do what's right for our community. Thank you.
My name is Christopher Radu. I reside at 2745 Green Meadows Drive, Traverse City, Michigan. I'm here because I'm against issuing the bonds. Your last 2 speakers said that they're not financial experts. I work in the field of finance, and I will tell you that the projections that you're being given are rosy at best, and this is the wrong thing to do. You're essentially trying to create an arbitrage, and you're trying to kick the can down the road at a point in time where some of the people that have spoken won't be here to see the ramifications of those decisions, but there are those of us that will. And I can tell you that as one of those people, statistically speaking, one of those people, I would not be happy with that decision. I have a couple of articles to talk about. One of them is debunking the 8% return myth. Part of the reason why we're here is somebody came up with the grand idea that an 8% return was feasible. And during the roaring 90s, that's absolutely true. It was. In fact, there are many financial advisors that got sued because they told their clients at the end of 2000 that they could retire and that they'd have a guaranteed 7% return on their investments, no questions asked. Well, there's countless lawsuits that show that that is not the case. You have countless pension systems that are lowering their projections for what the returns are because they know that they're not achievable. City of Chicago, let's not forget our neighbors in Detroit, who also issued pension bonds at one point to fill a gap that existed, and those bonds have since gone into default. There was an interesting article when Detroit filed bankruptcy. One of their pensioners retired at age 53, was receiving $2,000 a month in retirement. And his statement was, when he was told he was going to get about 11 cents on the dollar on a go-forward basis, he said, well, I was under the impression that all I had to do was work until I got my pension and then I would be fine. Not understanding that the financial liability lay somewhere and that there is no such thing as a free lunch. That gentleman not even yet eligible for Social Security, hasn't worked since and has nothing set aside. And that is terrible, but, you know, that 8% wasn't realistic. Chicago is facing the same problems. They're on the verge of bankruptcy because of their pension liabilities. Anyone that's paid attention to Illinois can see that they're woefully underfunded to the tune of 40%. When you talk about MERS's return projections as far as 8% dating it back to 1991, it's very disingenuous to use those return projections because getting an 8% standard return from that date really wasn't that difficult. All you had to do was buy a 10-year or a 30-year bond, as illustrated on these charts. This is a 20-year table that shows where interest rates have gone, nowhere but down, in case you're wondering. The rate back then was 8%. All you had to do was buy a government security and you got your 8% return. I question any of you to tell me what the 30-year bond is today. I will tell you it's 3.82% if you lend the money to the government for 30 years. If you give it to them for 10, it's 2.74. I mention those because you're issuing 20 years worth of bonds, so logically we need to look somewhere in between. Even if you go to a high-yield debt, the return is 6.14%. That's not enough of an arbitrage for you to fill the gap that you're trying to fill. What you're doing is you're just pushing out the obligation to a later date, and the problem is that most people won't see the disaster until 10 years down the road because that's when your little pile of money is going to start running dry and the return projections won't make it. I also brought, this is a project that I could get behind, and if you want to start issuing money for purposes, then let's tie it to something that actually brings in revenues. This is for the parking structure that is in downtown Traverse City. They just doubled the rates this year. I have a picture that I took as I walked out of it because it's right next to the building I work in. It is filled today. It is filled during Film Festival. It is filled during Cherry Festival. It has people that sign up for an annual basis to pay to park there that just absorbed a fee increase. It generates revenue. This table of bonds that is due was realistic because there was a revenue stream that it could be tied to. What you're talking about doing is tying it to property taxes. I can't help but notice how interested people in Traverse City are at increasing their property taxes. Ergo, TCAPS has been unable to float a bond 2 years in a row.
Can you
Why?
wrap it up, Chris?
What's that?
Can you wrap it up, please?
I can. What I'm here to say is that the arbitrage that you're trying to create is not going to work. It'll look like it works in the first couple years. The articles that were written in the Record Eagle that talked about how we're going to go from a budget deficit to a budget surplus in 2014 is also disingenuous. It's based on the fact that you're financing the budget deficit in order to create a surplus. That's not reality. At some point, the conversation needs to be had. You can't have your cake and eat it too. When are we going to have a realistic conversation with people about what is possible and what is not? The programs that were spoken by the two previous people are great. I agree with them completely. Half the year you can swim in a giant body of water out there for free. It's there. We have the luxury of that. Detroit had the luxury of water. Chicago has the luxury of water. That did not stop them from going bankrupt. Please don't mortgage our future. Mathematically, it says it won't work.
Thank you.
This, by the way, is an even longer-term chart, and if you'll notice, this middle column right here is interest rates. The 10-year Treasury, historically, is below 5%. There are very few times it's gone above. So when you look at those returns from 91, it peaked in 82. It's gone down ever since. Even if it were to rise rapidly from today or the date of issuance, you're still not going to get the return projections that you're looking at. Not to mention, if you have a rise in interest rates, what's that going to do to housing, auto buys, and everything else? The economy is floating on cheap money right now. If that spigot turns off, think about what the economy looks like in that scenario.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Next person for public comment. Seeing none, come back to the commission. Larry.
Well, as you know, the county board has set a public hearing on the issue of looking at pension bonds and the bonding of pension bonds. In the resolution that we reviewed, that would start a 45-day period of which we would give the public notice on a referendum. of which went down 4-3. And then we later decided to hold a public hearing scheduled for December 4th at 7 p.m. on Wednesday. And quite frankly, Mr. Chairman, I don't know the value of going through the particular budget items until the board has made a decision on the pension bond issue. And then we could move forward with the deepened discussions of what the alternatives are after that point. So I know we have a meeting tonight for our board meeting, but I don't know the value of keeping us here for 3-4 hours floating through various items of the budget is going to be valuable enough until we have that public hearing.
Chris?
I just have a question. I'm looking at Appendix B that, well, I'm trying to, I just switched I took my glasses off. Appendix B that Dean handed out, and in 2014, our annual payment would be, according to Dean, $2,411,000 in 2014. So, in effect, we're giving ourselves about a $1 million cushion next year by pushing the payments out over 20 years. The following year, we've got a payment coming at $3.3 million. Now, that's a $900,000 difference. We still have to plan for that.
Right.
So, why not start there? I mean, while we do not agree right now whether or not to issue bonds, if we do issue bonds, we can all see Dean's numbers, $900,000. We have to address that. Why not start there?
Other commissioner comment?
Well, I can address that. Those are numbers that were put out together by MFCI, which is John Hicks, or MCFI. And we can structure that any way we want. I mean, it depends on how much you want to pay up front and how much you want to pay in the end. Right now, on a pay-as-you-go basis at MERS, you're earning 8% interest on average. That's what their projections are. That's what every number they've given you is based upon an 8% return on investment. And that's not investing in bonds or treasury bonds or anything like that. It's a balanced portfolio like you would in your retirement system, your own personal retirement. And over in our actuarial report, they said that they believe that that's a realistic projection because they've earned 9.3% over the past 30 years. They didn't say what they've earned over the past 20 years, but they did say what they earned over the past 30. So, the world is a little different than it used to be. We all feel that and recognize that. But how, the question is, certainly this is not without risk. We also know that, these pension bonds are built on the same assumption. It's 8% if you do nothing, it's 8% if you bond for this. It doesn't really matter. It's the same return on investment, and if it drops by 1%, you would get 7 or 6 or 5 or 4. The amount that you're going to have to pay in subsequent years is going to increase by the exact same number, whether you bond for it or not. Your problem is going to increase by the same number. Okay, so that the risk is really if the bottom drops out on the whole world and you don't have any money. The principal is hit. Their assumption is that we're going to earn 8%. And the way we've got it structured is the first year you get a bump and then it drops and it starts to increase gradually. If you look at the pay-as-you-go numbers, they go up for the next 10 years, which means you're going to cut for the next 10 years, and then you're going to have a surplus after 10 years. And what this does is it finances it over a 20-year period. It drops the number that you have to pay, and it costs you money to borrow money. But you're going to pay it over a longer period of time, allowing you to continue the services that you've built over the last 150 years in county government. If you don't want to do that, that's fine. We can start cutting, but it's just not going to be a pleasant exercise. So that's, I guess, we've talked about this. I've got I've got lots of information, and Warren Kramer came in on the suggestion of 3 commissioners talked to him separately on different occasions, and he said, I don't think that's a very good idea. That's what he told those 3 commissioners. And after he looked at it, he said, this will work for you. I work with the county administrators group, and we've been looking at it for quite some time. We've had several sessions on it, on how it works. I understand the mechanics of it. And if we don't earn if we don't earn 8% on our money, we're going to pay more. And we're going to have an additional appropriation. I think Warren Kramer said if you go down to 7%, the MERS numbers, pay-as-you-go number, will go up by $360,000. And oh, by the way, you're going to pay your bond payment plus $360,000 in 2015 if you only earn 7%. I don't know how closely he looked at that, because they amortize it over 10 years. If you lose money, they had a 26% drop in 2008, that's still a part of the 10-year amortization of what you get. If we go up by 15% at the end of this year, which is what they're projecting, the market doesn't change dramatically, we're going to be overfunded next year. But only by 1/10 of the 15% difference, the difference between 15 and 8%. Only 1/10 of that will be counted, because we're still counting 1/10 of the last 10 years. So it's complicated finances, but I think it's an option for us.
Chris?
Dave Gaspey, according to Governing Magazine, is looking at lowering the discount rate next year. I read an article that said that. Don't know whether they will or not, but there's discussion. A question I do have is, MERS is saying over 30 years they earned 9+%.
Something, right.
We figure 8%, yet we're still only 50% funded. That would tend to make me untrusting of MERS and their numbers. The other problem I've got with MERS is this is a fund that has a board of municipal employees. They are municipal. I have pictures here of the board, and they're all, one is Michael Brown, County Administrator of Berry County, Philip LaJoy, Administrator of Canton Township.
Sally Dreves, Grand Traverse County.
Sally DeVries, one of our employees. This is a board of municipal employees.
Mm-hmm.
They do not have to accelerate our payments. And yet they are. Even though your MERS is saying over 30 years, we've made 9+%. They do not have to do this. And really what they're doing, in my opinion, is sticking it to the taxpayer. And when it's not necessary. And I have not heard one county board member say this is not necessary for MERS to do this. I've not heard you, I've heard you actually say it is not necessary for MERS to do this.
I've already said that.
It's their policy.
It's
That you're
just a
gonna pay
policy, and they're
2 for
doing
1.
it because they can. And they're basically punishing,
Closed groups.
yeah. And they're also punishing their fellow employees who are on defined contribution. Because if cuts come, those defined contribution employees have less seniority than defined benefit employees, because we discontinued the plan many years ago. And usually, and I don't know that all of our I have not read all of our contracts, but usually people who have less seniority are the first to be laid off if there are cuts. I want to know if there is any way, because I'm not real excited about moving forward with this unless we have a realistic 2014, 2015 budget in place. And when I say a realistic 2014, 2015 budget, I'm looking at $900,000 next year, even if we bond.
No.
Well, we'll have a couple $100,000 extra in the bank because we're not spending as much in 2014 if we pay as you go. All right? So we're going to have a little, in any event, is there any way that we can move or meet with this MERS board? These are municipal employees. That, I mean, we are going to pay our bill. We are going to pay those pension payments.
Well, I can look into that.
I mean, I would like to take that step as quickly as possible.
Okay.
I want to talk to these people and say, I want to know why you're doing this to us and why you're doing this to other municipalities around the state of Michigan. I just want to know why, and I want to hear it from them.
There are two boards at MERS. One is the policy board that I think they determine, those kind of policies. And I may be wrong about that. I have to check into it. But there is an investment board also that is not those people. That is a group of professionals that work for MERS, and they professionally invest MERS, the money from all these jurisdictions throughout the state. And there, you saw in one of those, one of the attachments that were handed out last week, that they've pretty much hit the benchmarks, just like any other professional investor would have. But as far as, the policy that was set a long time ago on closed groups and requiring accelerated funding, we've talked to MERS about changing that, and they have not changed it. I don't know if, the board that one of our employees is on, that Michael Brown is the president of, I don't know if that board sets that policy or if it's, set somehow by the corporation. MERS is not a state agency any longer. It's a separate company.
I understand it's a separate company, but if this MERS retirement board doesn't know, what the other board's doing, I just want an answer to why.
Yeah, okay. I'll
That's
see.
all.
I'll see if I can get that by the end. Actually, by
I mean,
the end of the
if
day.
somebody can give me a really, really good reason as to why they seem to feel the need to make us go out and spend $23+ million in interest charges for the tax, and put that on the backs of the taxpayer, I just want to know why. And I would think the taxpayer would want to know why.
I thought the white paper that Michigan State Extension did was rather interesting, because they talked about that if you didn't put that money into it, they couldn't invest your money, and if they had that money up front, they could invest your money and reduce your cost coming into the people into the program. That was kind of the gist. I don't know if anybody else read that white paper. I thought that was a very nicely laid out scenario as to what they thought.
Arbitrage.
So, but, that's a comment. Larry?
Well, I just want to let you know that I've been screaming and yelling about this for a year.
I know
That
you have.
exact same topic, about why can't we put political pressure on MERS, Michigan Employment Retirement System, and suggested, even when Dennis Aloya was here, that an ad hoc committee of the board go down or invite them up and discuss this whole issue of the accelerated payment schedule. And Dennis tried to make an appointment down there, and it fell on deaf ears down there. Well, I don't know how far, I know that you've mentioned this to the Michigan Association of Counties during some meetings down there, and we haven't gotten very far. I just think that, if the county administrators in the state of Michigan, if the board chairmans of all the counties in the state of Michigan, along with our representatives, sit on their doorstep during one of their meetings and pack their hall, maybe we can get their attention on this thing. There's got to be another way around it. And if they're concerned about their ability to fund this thing, we all got, maybe it ought to be a deal. If you got a AA or a single A bond rating, then you can go back to a 20-year amortization because you got the capital to do it and the financial strength to do it. Why they're requiring us to pay this whole thing up front is beyond me. And I think we've got to put some political pressure on those people down there. I'd rather do that than bond this pension bond thing. So I think we should try to accomplish that sooner than later, to be honest with you. The second question I have is a question I couldn't answer from the member of the public, was the proposed pension bond going to the market, is that a fixed rate bond for 20 years, or is that a graduated rate for 20 years? And if it's a graduated, just like the normal types of general obligation bonds for county governments, then those spreads aren't going to be there as the bond goes forward. I mean, Dave, have you looked into that?
There was
there's-
a draft on that that
Yeah.
showed that.
This one?
No.
Oh,
If we don't have the answer, I think we need to look into it. But I'm all for going full bore and getting these groups together and getting down to Lansing as soon as we can. Because every county board in the state of Michigan is having the same discussion we're having, and they're all getting killed over this accelerated amortization. And, you know, it's going to be...
The taxpayers are the ones that are getting kicked.
And then, yeah, and they're going to lay it on the taxpayers, and it's a terrible policy.
And employees, you know, that get cut.
Yeah, you're
It's just ridiculous.
You're gonna basically plummet county services, and anything that's non-mandated is just gonna disappear over the next 10 years. It's just gonna be horrible.
It's the second page, Appendix B of the retirees' pension bonds information you were given. And it shows it starts out at 2.5, then 2.753, 325.
So it is a graduated
It
rate.
is.
So it is a
Goes up to
graduated rate.
5.
Goes up to 5.
So if it's a graduated rate, we're losing ground as we go forward.
I think this is a true interest cost of 4.5%.
So they're averaging it.
Depends on who structured the bond issue.
Well, when you get down to the final years and you're paying 5%, you're really gonna be coughing it in.
5% on a smaller amount, too.
Yeah.
Well, Dean put together a schedule that made our debt service fairly flat over the 20-year period. We could make it lower in the front end and higher in the back end, or whatever. But he wanted to make it more level, so that it wasn't, you know, if there were any fluctuations in our cost, it would be manageable. So that if, you know, we earned less, if the average, 10-year average dropped below 8% for a period of time, we would be positioned to be able to handle that, instead of having to handle increase after increase after increase. So, you know, we're trying to structure this very conservatively. You know, and I don't know. I can't get in, you know, we had MERS, the new executive director here. We all hammered him on that very point.
Right.
They didn't budge an inch. I don't know that we've gotten, I think the correct answer is yes. The more money you put in up front, the faster you can get fully funded. And so they've been requiring 2-for-1, basically. And there's, you know, they haven't changed that. And as much as we've insisted that it needs to be changed, they have not responded to that, and they have not changed it. And you got to remember, we're one of, I don't know how many, hundreds of jurisdictions that are in MERS. So this rule applies to all of them.
Dan, you had your hand up?
Yeah, my wish is that we be good stewards of the money that our hard-working citizens are paying to us, and provide a service that they want and need at a price that they can afford. So I think we've got the cart before the horse, and I've been saying this all along, that I believe we should look at our budget structurally and look at the way we administer these services structurally, department by department, and really work as a team, plow horse team, and get this work done, make our cuts, while at the same time not reducing services. Keep the services the same as they are. I've had to do this in my office. There's hundreds of thousands of businesses a few years ago and currently that have had to lower their overhead and provide the same service, we can do the same thing. After we've done that, then decide how much we want to borrow. So we don't borrow so much. What if we only have to borrow a third of it or half of it? Now, that would make me feel good. Why? Because I think my citizens would feel good about it too. We haven't done that work. We've been saying we were gonna. Well, we're gonna go through line by line, and it has not happened yet. Not 1 ounce.
Sonny?
A couple of things. One, there's no way you cut $1.5 million out of this budget and provide all of the services we continue to pay. 80 to 85% of this budget is personnel. The only way you cut that kind of money is cut out people. And there's no other way to look at that.
Are you afraid to look at it?
No, I'm not afraid to look at it.
Let's look at it then.
But you're going to have to understand that services that someone in this audience or someone in this community depends on is going to go away. You're just not going to be able to do it all. The other thing is, we sat here this afternoon and we're talking about, meeting with the MERS board. What the hell do you think we've been doing for 10 years? We've been sending our representative there month after month after month for 10 years, telling them that we're opposed to the accelerated amortization. We were fortunate enough, Grand Traverse County led the charge to get us a 3-year freeze a couple years ago. But it's not like we haven't talked to them over and over and over again about the accelerated amortization. And the bottom line, folks, is they're not going to change that policy. David just talked about, we've met with the executive director of MERS. This is their policy, and they're not going to fluctuate on that. You are going to pay the accelerated amortization. We have been, for 10 years, we've been screwing with this thing, month after month after month, telling them we cannot afford the accelerated amortization. They're not changing the policy. We have to figure out a way to pay our bills. Do I like the idea of the bond? Yeah, I'm not completely in favor, but at the same time, I can look at the numbers and I can see where I can get a fixed level rate and level playing field to deal with. And it takes care of the structural deficit in our budget for 13 years. Do we make 8%? Probably not. But our risk of making 8% on that bond is no different than our risk of making 8% on the payment to MERS. The liability, the risk of liability is exactly the same, whether we're making the payment to the bond or whether we're making the payment to MERS. None of that changes. But if you think, and I've got 100 little tags here where I can pull out some money out of this budget. We've talked about that very thoroughly. But at the same time, I cannot find the money in this budget, in next year's budget, and the year after that's budget, unless you're willing to cut out services that someone in this community depends on.
Charlie?
I believe that we're allowed to borrow this money because of Act 229, which was put in there so MERS could accelerate this thing. That's what it's all about. It happened in 2012. Now, getting back to Warren Creamer, I appreciate him coming in and making a great presentation. When I talked to Warren Creamer first, he was concerned as a tax-paying citizen. He came in and gave us an analysis of a bonding approach to handle and smooth out this payment. It did not address the systemic problems that we feel, some of us commissioners, is in the system now, from what has happened over the past, you say 30, 20 years, whatever it is. These are different times than 10 years ago. We have to put this county in a position to live with what we have now. With what we're doing with this bond, I believe, is kind of kicking it down the road until we see what happens again. A lot of people out there that pay taxes are not for that. That's where I feel on that one.
Dick, do you have a comment?
How much would it cost us if we sold the bonds and paid MERS off and then become self-insured?
Well, that's exactly what the bonds do. They pay off the
you still owe
unfunded
MERS.
liability.
You still owe MERS every year by doing it that way.
Well, that's true. We have, this only includes the unfunded liability. It doesn't include the normal costs, which we have in the budget already. We've segregated the two pieces so that the legacy cost is separate from the ongoing cost. We're paying the ongoing cost in the budget. what we're talking about is that piece that has pretty much
Okay,
has been underfunded by about 50%. I mean, we got $41 million in the bank, and we need 45 or 46 more to be fully funded, so that when the last person dies, they get a check too.
No, I think it was, Dick, were you asking the question, can we ask MERS to transfer their portion of our defined benefit program back to us, and we would manage it? We would hire a firm and manage it, and then we could set our own policy
yeah.
and take it to 20 years.
There you go.
So is that feasible? I mean, I'm saying it's a good idea. I'm just saying
understand what
there
you're
are
saying.
some ideas on the table.
Well-
We're in a position right now that either we gotta go this bonding route, which I told you before I'm gun shy of, or we've got to spend some fund balance, or we've got to ask the citizens for more tax dollars, or we've got to
Got it.
cut the budget. And you're not gonna cut $1.5 million out of this by going through it page by page. The only way to do it is you cut the departments that can be cut, let those managers handle their own people. Say, here, it's gonna cost you 5% this year. You figure out which 5%. But we're in that position. We don't, I wouldn't be opposed to using some fund balance. Because Dean is a tightwad enough that he never spends that much anyway. So.
I don't think I don't know, maybe you guys have degrees in how to do this kind of stuff, but if we're going to look at making cuts and making structural changes that, as much as possible, can provide the same services we have now for less money, how much ever less, maybe it's $500,000 less. Okay? We might need some professional help in that. That's a big project. I'm just saying we need to look at this and see where to just carte blanche say it won't work. We're at the position now where we have to make it work. Maybe we'll find something.
Sonny?
Yeah.
You're not going to find any professional help that can tell you better about how to provide services in Grand Traverse County than our department heads that are currently doing it. We have damn good people here. You know, hire good people, let them do their job. You know, if we decide the way to balance this budget is to take 5% out of the budget across the board, you know, we'll pass a budget with using fund balance for 2014, and then we'll go to all of the departments and tell them, I need 5% out of your budget, see where you can find it. You know, you talk to the sheriff about taking 5% out of his budget, he's gonna have a coronary, so the deputy's gonna have to revive him real quickly, and, you know, we go talk to Jamel in Central Dispatch and tell her, oh, by the way, we're taking 5% out of your budget. She doesn't have 5% of surplus to take. We got departments that have 2 or 3 people in them. You know, how do you take 5% out of theirs?
What about 2%?
Well, we need 5% out of this budget.
Okay.
We need 5%.
All right, so,
You know,
okay, so we
the way
only
to
get
the way to
2.
do 5% is to get rid of 12 people.
That's
You
one
want- you
way.
wanna- well,
That's one way.
That's the way to get rid of 12 people. 85% of this budget is personnel costs.
That's
The
right.
only way you're going to cut that kind of money is by cutting personnel. So who's going to decide where to cut the personnel?
We're going to get advice and we'll decide.
I think it's rather interesting to note that we've been through this numerous times. And you know what the bottom line is? We've always gone back and accepted what the administrator proposed. Which means that you're going to cut police officers, you're going to cut Parks and Recreation, which is exactly what he proposed, and that's not where we want to go. Believe me, we do not want to go that way. Chris?
I'm moving over to Dickey's camp. I think we need to take another look at fund balance. And then, I agree with Sonny, mark your calendars, I don't think we're going to find the amount of money that is necessary that we find going department to department. But the combination of the two might get us to 2015 in around the corner, and in next January, we need to start taking a look at this. And you know, if at that time it makes sense for us to go ahead and issue pension bonds, then it makes sense. But Herb, you heard me last night. I have gone door to door for 4 days. It was 17 degrees Saturday night in Garfield Township, and they looked at me like, "Are you nuts?" And there is no public support for this that I could find, at least when I was out going door to door. Now, that's not to say there is no public support out there, because certainly we heard from Carl. There is some public support for this, but it's minuscule. Now, I will tell you also that most of the doors I knocked on, and I only went to 3 townships, and no, I'm not running for the 104th. I went to Acme, Peninsula, and I went to Garfield. But I wanted to try to get a broad perspective from people who are probably not going to attend our public hearing. I wanted to hear from them. And by the way, Larry, Acme Township, one of your residents dug me out of a ditch. Wonderful people. Another one said he was on his way to a Lions game with beer and said, "Come and join us." I said, "No, can't do it." But I got to tell you, you got great people at Acme Township. There is, you know, most of the people that I spoke with were seniors. And because in the afternoon, that's who's home, are seniors, and they're on fixed incomes. They understand what we are up against. But in almost every instance, they said exactly what Dr. Lathrop just said. Have you looked at the services that you provide and how you provide them, and is there a better way? If you've done that, I can live with this. If you haven't done that, I can't live with this, and we have not done that. And in more instances than not, the individuals said they want a vote. They would like us to take this to a referendum. Now, I'm sure, at least I'm confident, I'm not sure, I'm confident that most of the individuals that said that, and I've had telephone calls, I've gotten emails, most of the individuals who suggested that I do that are suggesting it because they have not seen this county board take a look at the services we provide and how we provide them. And but that's just my opinion. And I have to tell you, it took 2 days for the shoes that I'm wearing right now to dry out because they were so wet from yesterday, or the day before yesterday. But I am out there, I'm knocking on doors, I'm talking to as many people as I can, because I don't think those people are going to come here to our public hearing.
Larry?
Well, quite frankly, we don't, I hate to say this, but we don't have the time to do what is necessary to go through that book by department to department to find these cuts if we don't like the county administrator's recommendation. And quite frankly, I feel that this pension bond issue is a rush solely to solve next year's budget. And that we need to we need more answers to this whole bonding thing, like these interest rate stuff. I would be willing, as much as I have fought and kicked and screamed about the fund balance for 21 years, I would be willing to transfer $1 million out of that fund balance, out of an $8 million fund balance, take it down to $7 million. We would still be within the highest range of all the counties in the state of Michigan, and their ranges are anywhere from 15% to 18% is their policy guidelines for the most part. As far as I know, the majority of counties in the state of Michigan that have AA bond ratings have a fund balance policy of 15 to 18%. Dave brought back some information to us at our last meeting and said if we took $1 million out of the fund balance, it would be at 15.5. All right? So I would only do that if this board committed, starting January 1, that we would spend the next 6 months developing a 2-year budget based on going through every item in all the departments and saying we need not only the level of cuts that we need for 014 to cover the fund balance injection, but for the projected 016 budget. So we wouldn't want 015 and 016 budget done by June of next year, and that every commissioner would list what they want in terms of a process, as whether it's budgeting for outcomes, or department presentations, or shave 5% off where you can, or 3%, or eliminate this, eliminate that. We would have the time to do that over the next 6 months and do it smartly, not by pushing a panic button saying we need to have this done in the next 30 days. Either the fund, or either the pension bond vote, or the administrator's recommendations, which we don't like in part. Some of it was okay. The issue of doing it smartly and going through this book and making the right cuts and justifying. So I guess that's a solution I could throw on the floor. It's not pretty. I don't like it. It does maintain, hopefully, our AA bond rating, because there are counties out there with AA bond rates with at 15% of fund balance, but I would only do that if this board was committed to a 2-year budget. We start in January and we end in June, and we isolate the cuts, and during that time, we have 6 months more under our belt to either consider or not consider this pension bond option.
Sonny?
When I came here 16 years ago, we had a fund balance of approximately $1 million. We now have a fund balance of about $8.3 million. We've grown that fund balance when the economy was good and we were able to invest money. We were still very conservative in how we spent our money. We did everything we could to, provide as much service as we could, but we were smart about how we did that. I don't have a problem with the idea of lowering the current fund balance. Obviously, we have to change our fund balance policy, because our policy says that the county board must maintain a 18 to 20% fund balance of their general fund budget. Maybe, in order to get out of here and move on and come back in a couple hours for the new meeting, maybe what we need to do is, I will make a motion to direct staff to come back with a revised fund balance policy using $1 million of fund balance, and bring us the policy at tonight's meeting so as that we can move forward with the 2014 budget.
Support.
I have a motion support. Is there any discussion on the motion?
Just so the motion is clear that as long as it's in the 15 or above range percent of expenditures, if that can be specific within the resolution, and we could just address that in the following year.
If we address $1 million, and he'll come back with a fund balance policy tonight that will tell us what $1 million does to our fund balance.
And then tonight we can discuss a commitment moving forward.
Correct.
To responsibly address the fact that our expenses are exceeding our revenues incessantly.
Yeah, and we could also talk about the process, okay? We want a 6-month process starting in January. We want to conclude it by June. We want a 2-year budget.
I mean,
and we want to identify the cuts.
And this is going to take some time in meetings, folks.
Yes.
We need to, as part of that, we need to look at, and that's discussion for later. We need to look at a schedule that will permit us at least 2 meetings a week.
Yes.
The one that we currently have, plus
Fine.
another additional meeting, because other than that, we can't get it done.
Wednesday afternoons work for me.
Yeah.
I have no other meetings scheduled Wednesday afternoons.
Okay.
Thank you.
You might,
Do you?
Yeah, I do.
I'm just speaking for myself.
Robert's rules.
Someplace
sorry.
we'd gotten the fund balance policy.
Yeah, we had it in our last meeting, it was a
Yeah,
copy.
I don't have a copy of, I can't find a copy of it here, but I don't think it, I think it gives us the right to be able to do it without a motion.
No,
No, it doesn't.
requires
No,
a
it doesn't.
2/3 motion to go
Requires a
below
2/3 vote to
18%.
drop below 18%, which means
5 out of 7.
5 of us have to vote to change the policy.
Okay? So, the challenge I have with this is we're kicking the can down the road.
6 months, because we're not going to
6
use.
months, no.
We're not going to use the full
Excuse me.
million.
Listen what happens in 6 months. Interest rates go up, we pay more if we bond, and any cuts we implement have to be doubled, because we don't do it for the first 6 months. So if you're going to do the cuts, you're going to double the cuts at the end of the 6 months in order to balance the budget for the year.
I understand it.
Am I not right, Dave?
Yeah, well, that's correct.
Pretty
understand
close.
that. I
Well, the
understand.
$1 million will balance your 2014 budget.
But
The
we won't
cuts
do
will
it.
have to be made in 2015.
But we can't make it until
No, we
June.
can make cuts in 2014.
So we can't make it until June.
As we look at
So
the
we gotta cut $1
2015
million
budget, we
for
can
the
make
last
those
6
cuts.
months. That's the challenge I see, Dave.
You know, this is all predicated on assumptions. And the assumption that has been made is that no one's looked at the budget yet.
That's right.
Nobody who understands budgets has looked at the budget yet, like Dean Bott or me. We haven't looked at this yet. That's the assumption you're making. The other assumption you're making is that you're going to find these cuts in the budget, and that these departments aren't doing their job right now, because they need this board to go through it with them to find the places where this budget can be cut. I'm going to suggest you're not going to find it.
I am.
That's right.
It's a good idea to go through the budget. I strongly encourage you to spend the next 6 months interviewing departments and going over their budgets in fine detail. I can give you a lot of places where you can add revenue or cut expenditures in departments if you work with them and look at different things. You have to, of course, be willing to do some of those things. You know, like the finance department does bond after bond after bond for townships, but they don't charge a dime for that. And then they have to take care of that and monitor those and report on those for 20 years. But we do that for free. We don't want to do that. We got to charge them. Okay? We can put money in the budget to do that. But if you don't want to do that, then we'll have to go to another department. Or we're going to have to cut something and not do something. If you think that we have not looked at this budget, and there are services that we can keep everything that we've got, good luck, that's my final word on this. The assumption is that nobody's looked and our departments aren't doing their jobs. And I reject both of those assumptions.
Chris?
Some of the services, and Sonny brings this up periodically, some of the services we have to look at whether or not we are going to continue. And I'll just bring up animal control, for instance. Do we need 2 animal control officers? Do we need animal control at all? We may. But I'd like to, I would like to look into some of this stuff. Is this a service that we can contract? We certainly are contracting with the Cherryland Humane Society to take care of the pets that are picked up by animal control. Maybe we can contract that out too. Maybe we can maintain that service and, cut expenses. We did it with the custodial staff. It's not necessarily a popular thing, but ever since we did it with the custodial staff, how many complaints do you get about the fact that things are not clean? 0. Now, this is what I'm talking about.
Do it. I mean,
Fine.
but it's going to take some time to do that.
Yes, it
In the
is.
next 6 months, you can do that.
Yes, we can, and we should.
Those are policy decisions.
Yes.
As far as, whether you're going to be able to yank a few pennies here and there and get these departments to cut, it's already been done. I'm guaranteeing you, it's already been done.
Well, yeah, all right.
What's the
Well,
total
cattle
budget
license-
for the sheriff department?
There you
5
go.
million?
Well, it's a little higher
Big
than that.
money.
13.
13 point
13 million? Okay, if you cut 5% out of that budget, that's $500,000. That's the number of officers that the administrator has already said they're going to recut. That's what you're going to do. That's your 5%. Exactly what Dave has proposed. And that's what I'm saying, that what you're going to do is you're going to go through all this stuff and you're going to go, well, our administrator and our finance people, they did a really good job. We're not going to be able to cut any more. We're going to have to cut those out of what their recommendation. We don't want to do that.
We need to look at contracting, Herb,
I don't
in some instances.
I don't know. Anyway, I need more discussion on just the motion. Sonny?
I was not by any sense inferring that the finance staff and the administrator had not reviewed the budget prior to coming here. I've also read through all of the packet of the budget requests that have come from all the departments. I didn't see one budget request coming from any department that asked that we cut their staff. Everything I heard, or everything I read was they needed more people and more technology to get the job done and provide the best service that they could to their community. Our departments are committed to providing services to our community. You know, I absolutely think the decision that's going to have to be made, you know, we can balance the budget for 2014 this way, but the decision that has to be made beyond that comes back to the idea, and we've had the discussion over times about, if I wasn't providing this service, would I start doing it now?
Yes.
Yes.
And if we're willing to have that discussion.
I am.
And eliminate some of the services that we are actively doing and people in our community are depending on, then that's fine. But if we think we're going to recycle enough paper clips to cut this kind of money,
No,
it's
we're
not
not.
going to happen.
No.
So if you're sitting here with the assumption that we can go back through this budget and we can find the money that we need in 2014, 2015, 2016, without cutting services to the committee, you're absolutely nuts. It can't happen. We will have to cut services to community if we're going to cut this kind of money out of our budget.
Larry?
Oh, I would just like to remind the public and the new commissioners that over the last 8 years, what we've done is we've eliminated positions as we've gone along with some fund balances, hoping that the economy would turn around, hoping assessed values would begin to return back, so it would be a short-term situation in terms of trying to balance our budget. And that has not occurred. The fund balance was exceptionally strong. We were pretty smart back, the last 20 years. I mean, we built, as Sonny said, from $1 million to a $8 million fund balance. We built a fully funded delinquent tax fund of $8 million. We built the Hall of Justice without going back to the taxpayers. We expanded the jail without asking the taxpayers for any new money. We remodeled the courthouse sitting right next to us, the old one, without asking the public for new money. We combined the sheriff's department over there on Woodmere without taxpayers asking for new money. We built the new administrative office for the health department over there without asking the public for new money. We acquired the building next to that, the administrative building, for other governmental offices to be there without asking the public for any other new money. We've done a great job managing the funds that we have given, that the public has given to us, without going back and asking for another dime. And I think it was a good plan to take it year by year and increment by increment. And the purpose behind, if you read the accounting standards purpose for a fund balance, it's to build for the good years and to use during the low years to balance out your services so you're not constantly hiring and then letting go, hiring, letting go. That's the purpose behind your fund balance. But we're at a point where, we've used that to the extent where we probably don't want to endanger our bond rating, so we're not going to take it down any much farther than 15%. That's where the guideline seems to be in the state right now for AA bond rating. So I'm willing to stretch it down because of the financial situation we have in the county, but make no mistake, we've done a great job over the last 20 years getting us to the point where we're at today. We just need to make some corrective moves.
Charlie?
As far as the motion goes, I'm all for using fund balances for this type of thing, especially if we can make a better decision going forward on this 40, 50, 60, whatever millions it is. Honestly, though, over the last 20 years, Commissioner, we wouldn't be sitting here today if we've done such a great job.
No, that's MERS.
Why can't we get a millage passed around here if we've done such a great job? There are many issues just beside that to say that you did a great job. Now, we're right now running a systemic deficit yearly.
That's because of MERS.
It doesn't matter who it's because.
That's their policy.
We're still sitting here. There's nothing we can do about it.
We have to attack.
That's why we can do this Act 229,
Yeah.
to save MERS. This is what this is all about. It still goes back to the taxpayer. The
understand.
taxpayer is absorbing this.
I understand.
And I don't think we've done that great a job, or we wouldn't be sitting here.
We've
on
done
a
an
systemic.
outstanding job,
You're not,
Commissioner
you
Rennie.
cannot interrupt me when I'm talking.
All right.
We're going by Robert's rules here,
All right,
Commissioner. Now, you've been talking for a half hour here.
Well, because I
okay?
had the floor. Go ahead and
Fine.
speak.
It hasn't been that great a job, or we would not be sitting there today with these people here concerned about their jobs and so forth. We can't pass a millage around here. That does not mean the public's real happy about things. So, yeah, we do have a problem. We should be going at fund balance and things like that. It's taxpayers' money sitting in funds. It is an emergency time. But we should also look at a heck of a lot more other stuff.
Are you completely finished?
Wait a minute, Larry.
I am completely, I'm
Then
not
I
completely
want a
finished.
response.
But you go ahead and
Mr.
respond,
Thomas.
because I'm not completely finished.
We,
I'm running the meeting, please.
okay, go ahead.
Mr. Thomas.
Charlie,
Yes, sir.
I've been here about 20 years, and as a matter of fact, this is my 35th budget. And because the rest of them were at the township. And never have we ever asked for extra money. At the township, now they have since I've been there, but at the township or here, we've always lived within what we took in. And I take a little abrasion at having people say we didn't do a good job, because we did go from $1 million to $8 million or whatever it is. But we've done it. The taxpayers would pay that, the amount, if we weren't here. If there was nobody here, the taxpayers would still pay the same amount, because it takes the same amount of money to run the county. And there are places we can cut, but we're at such a late point now, we'd better either we go to the bond or use some fund balance, and then you've got your work cut out for you.
That's right.
But, hey, we have never asked for any extra money, and all of the friends I know will all tell me that we waste money, but they all say, yeah, you have never raised any extras, so.
I'm not implying,
think-
Mr. Thomas, that we're wasting money. I didn't say that.
Well, that,
I think it's important to
Whatever.
note also, during this period of time, the Headley Amendment has cost our county $5.3 million a year. That's given back to the taxpayers. Taxpayers have received a benefit from the Headley Amendment, along with all the things that Larry had pointed out. The other thing is that our MERS payment has gone from $1 million up to $4.5 million. That's a huge increase. Now, that's $9 million in a difference right there. The other challenge is that our health insurance cost, I'm not sure what it was 10 years ago, but I'm willing to bet it was a tenth of what it is today. And so that health insurance cost has created an environment for us to have to go up also. So that's probably in the neighborhood $12 to $15 million difference that the taxpayers, that we have absorbed within the county for our taxpayers. And we've done all these things with it. And people who said, you've never looked at the budget line by line, department by department. Yes, we have. We've hired an administrator and a financial manager. They have done that. If you don't think that they're doing their job, then why not get rid of them? If you want to take and value their job, value their decisions. If you think that you want to set this out for a vote, I look at this as being a representative government. They elected you to make these decisions. This is not a decision that the general public totally understands, because even you don't understand it. They're not going to vote for something they don't understand. It's up to us to understand that and to make the decision as to whether or not we should be going forward. That's why we got elected. That's why we're here in these positions. And if we can't make those decisions, we got to, every time we want to make a decision, we got to fall back to the general public and say, we need a vote from you. Go ahead. Then every time you make a decision, you're going to have a vote. And I think that's a challenge. The other question is how long is it going to take you to do a vote? November is the next voting time? Or is it
Next August.
August? August is before the next vote could ever be happen. Unless you want to schedule a special election, that's going to cost you money.
About $83,000.
$83,000 to run an election. Now, I'd rather spend that money doing services in our community than spending it on an election. So I have a real problem in trying to spend fund balance. I have a problem not going to the bond. I think the bond is the only way we're going to be able to take care of this, and it's important that we continue to do that. Larry.
Well, I'm just going to make a statement, not a fight. I am not going to lay down the reputation and the outstanding work of the past county commissioners for the last 30 years our staff, our department heads, and our county administrator and our finance department, and all the fine people that work in this county, and lay them out on a MERS policy that has accelerated us to a budget issue. We've done a damn good job in this county, and we have a AA bond rating, one of the best ratings in the state, one of the best bond fund balances, a fully funded delinquent tax fund. Other counties in this state don't even come close to the financial management that we've done for this county. And I will not accept a remark that says that we've done a poor job because we haven't been able to respond to something that we have no control over, and that's a recent decision by MERS to accelerate our retirement plan payment amount. Period.
Call the motion.
I have a motion to call the motion. Do I have a vote on that? All those in favor of the calling the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Roll call, please.
Inman.
The motion is to what?
To call the motion.
Is to call the question?
Call the question.
Yes.
Thomas.
You didn't need to vote on it. Yes.
Wheelock.
Yes.
Max Bauer.
Yes.
Lathrop.
No.
Rennie.
No.
Lemkool.
Yes. We'll have a vote on the motion. The motion is to use fund balance for
No, it's
the
to
balance.
policy.
To,
To
Just to
amend the
look-
policy
look
for our
at-
fund
To
balance.
see what the policy is, I believe.
we have the we have
And
the.
what it would have to
We have the
be.
current policy.
What it
The
would have
motion
to
is
be.
to ask, excuse me, I believe I
I'm
stated the
sorry,
motion.
I'm shutting up.
I
Mark
believe
Taylor.
the motion was to ask staff to bring us a revised fund balance policy that would allow us to use $1 million of additional funds in the 2014 budget
For tonight's meeting?
for tonight's meeting.
Is that possible, Dave?
Sure. Yes.
Okay. That is the motion. We'll have a roll call.
Thomas.
Yep.
Wheelock.
Yes.
Max Bauer.
Yes.
Lathrop.
Yes.
Rennie.
Yeah.
Inman.
Yes.
Lemkool.
No. Motion passes. Okay, Dan?
I'd like to respond. First of all, I want you all to know I have great respect for all of you. And I know you're real smart at this, Dave. I just want to know that I'm doing things right for my constituency. So, and on that comment you made, Herb, that you don't want it to be brought before the people as a vote. We brought a $4 million item for a vote from the Road Commission just recently, and now we're looking at a $70 million item. I think our voters are pretty smart, and I think a decision this big, we should maybe talk about that. So I have a little different opinion than yours, respectfully so.
Well, I just want to say that I think that this whole thing is, how do we manage our debt? We already owe $70 million by the time you
And I
get
think
interest.
our voters should have something to say about that.
No, we already owe it.
I know.
It's
How we
already there.
manage it, our voters should have something to say
Yeah,
about it.
But if I'm going to, if I run a business, and my job is to run the business, and I want to figure out how to manage my debt that I already owe, it's how do I do it? Do I continue owing that money to MERS, and we keep cutting the budgets every year for the next 10 years, that we're going to be doing that? Or do I manage my debt so I can make the payments on a regular flat line basis, so I don't have to continue going through this debt cutting, and I know that what my payments are going to be in the future? I'm going to make that, if it's just like buying a house. When I
And you
had
don't
my
want
house
the-
financed at 8%,
And you don't want the advice of the voters over that.
I think we are capable of making this decision. But I think it's
I could use
managing
their
your
help,
debt.
actually.
Okay,
So-
but that's my decision, that's my feeling about this in this situation. That all we're doing is managing our debt. And when I have a debt, that when my house was at 8%, and the bank said, you know, if you want to get it at 2.5%, you can go over and do this at 2.5%, you think I didn't do it? Did I need the vote of my family in order to do that? No. I made the decision because that was the right decision to make. So, Charlie.
Yeah, sorry. This isn't about a personal house decision, though, I can tell you that. This is about the public in the county of Grand Traverse. absorbing these costs. And I would like to apologize to Commissioner Enman. I was not inferring at your particular performance. I'm talking about where we are collectively. I respect the county. I love every county worker. I think they do a great job. I think our administrator is trying to make this work. I don't know that it's the best plan for the public, and that's where I'm at with it.
Okay,
This has
I appreciate
been going on. We had this issue in this country since about 2007 and 8. We've really done nothing too much since then, thinking it was all going to come back somehow. It's not coming back.
Well, I agree with that.
This agenda that the federal government's pursuing is not going to change at least for the next 3 years. We're going to be flat on revenue, or fairly flat. That's my feeling. Why not look at it so we're not looking at layoffs every other year? Get the county healthy so we can go forward where we stand. That's what I'm for. Thank you.
Sonny?
I guess the one thing, that I have to get back to a little bit, I've talked to about it before. In 2003, 2004, we got rid of 22 positions in Grand Traverse County. We cut about $2.3 million, if my memory's right, out of that budget going into 2004. Those are very, very difficult decisions because, there's county workers whose jobs were gone. In that particular case, we'd offered an early out for some of them. That early out balanced our 2004 budget, but that's what's biting us in the ass today, is those gentlemen that left or ladies that left on defined benefit programs. It saved the county a ton of money at the time. But this legacy cost is what's catching up with us today. It didn't catch up with us for a long time, and all of the advice that we got from MERS and from everyone told us at the time that was the right thing to do. And when you look at it, our legacy costs are what they are. But had we not made those decisions in 2003, imagine where our legacy costs would be today if we still had open defined benefit programs. We have one open defined benefit program left in Grand Traverse County. And I hope that with the negotiations that are currently in place, that last defined benefit program will be closed. Great statement.
Another comment to you, Dan, about your debt with the road commission. Road commission was brand-new debt. This is not new debt. This is old debt that we owe.
23 million of it's brand new.
No, this is debt we owe.
Well, it's not a millage.
But it's not a millage, and it's debt we already owe. It's just how we're going to pay off our debt. That's the decision. And that's why I think that we can make those decisions easier than we can do the general public. If I was going to go out and ask them for another $44 million, you dang right, I'd be going out and asking for permission. You betcha. But I'm not.
Just another 28 million.
I'm only charging debt from here to here.
Yeah,
So
okay.
that's all. Any other comments? At this time, we'll go back to public comment.
Jamel Anderson, 600 Cherry Ridge Drive. I should know better by now to keep my mouth shut, but I just cannot help myself. So, I'm not an expert on a lot of things and maybe not smart about a lot of things, but something that I've learned that's pretty critical. I'm smart enough to know when I don't know and to count on people that do. Dave has not been our county administrator for a very long time, and we haven't had a lot of history with him. I appreciate his frankness and a lot of things about him. I think he does try to do the right thing. We have a treasurer's office that, even though our treasurer hasn't had a lot of treasurer experience, the person has been around for a long time, and I have a lot of respect for that person. And Dean, who's been here for almost 24 years, I can't even imagine what shape our county would be in if it were not for Dean. And his advice and his expertise. The man is extremely conservative. He's a proven expert. He watches over everything financially that we do. And I can speak from experience because I take things in there and he actually wants to read them before he signs them. So, I mean, he is on top of everything. He knows what's going on. You should look at the budget. You should continue to evaluate services. And we've been cutting the budget for years. This isn't, oh my gosh, we don't have money, what can we do? Dave said something recently in one of the meetings about stuff that department heads haven't even put in for. Well, I'm one of them. I've put in for things over the years, but there's tons of things I haven't, just because I know the money's not there. And we've kept things, we just keep things going. We try to keep moving forward the best we can because we want to be responsible to the taxpayers and do the best job we can because everybody is suffering. And we have Band-Aided, duct taped, super glued us through tons of stuff. And our staffing, I can only really speak about 911, but a lot of departments have these same issues. It's a tough job, and it's tougher here than a lot of places. I've told you before, 50% of our people don't even make it through training. A lot of them leave crying and tell us we're all crazy, which we already know that, but we expect a lot from them. The bar is high here. And the reason that 911 continues to provide the level of service we do, it's not because things are okay, because they're not okay. It's because the staff makes do with what they have, which is a common thread throughout the county. I had 2 dispatchers very recently that volunteered, each of them, to work 30 out of 36 hours because we were so shorthanded. I did not let that happen. But that's the kind of dedication that they have. They're not going to let the ball drop because of all this stuff going on out here. They're going to keep it going, and they do. We need more staff. We need capital funding. I know you've all heard this before, but I'm no financial guru. The kick the can thing, to me, kick the can sounds like using fund balance to get us through 6 months and delaying implementing a recommended solution by people who do know what they're talking about. You can look at any budget you want to. There are no secrets. If you tell me to take 10% of my budget, I'm going to ask you which body part of which dispatcher you want me to chop off, because that's about how it's going to have to happen, because we don't really have a lot of other stuff. We have been doing this for a long time. We have cut a lot of funding. We've gone without, and that's okay. Everybody's had to do that. Everybody's had to do their part. But it's just really frustrating because it certainly looks like bonding the pension funds would provide us a stable core funding mechanism that would allow us to move forward and still evaluate services, still go through the budget, still do all that stuff. And frankly, it almost seems like this is kind of a panic time because we're almost at the end of the time to have a budget and we don't have one. Well, all these things have been available for a long time. It's not like they just became available today. So, I'm sorry, but, all the information's been there. Services, everybody's talked about cutting services for years. This isn't just a thing that's happened in the past week. So please consider doing the bond, giving us the stability to move forward, and then do whatever you think is necessary and appropriate to do. Thank you.
Back over here.
Good afternoon. Matthew Scheck, 306 West 9th Street, Traverse City. We're up on a couple anniversaries here and that tie that in with their debate on the budget and making ends meet for our county. One of the anniversaries of founding of the Federal Reserve Bank, where we get our present situation of debt-backed currency. And the other one was the president, Kennedy, who made that famous statement, kind of put us all in our place, where he said, ask not what your country can do for you, but ask rather what you can do for your country. All of this, kind of comes together for me because I've heard people say that they're not financial advisors or financial consultants, and yet I am a financial consultant for my family. My wife and I were the financial consultants, and we kept our 3 kids and our family together, and we did it by avoiding debt. That's not an easy thing to do. There's times where I've worked 3 jobs at one time just to survive, but I knew that that's what had to be done. I'm not asking you guys to do something like that, but I think everybody, when they see that their country's imperiled, their county's in trouble, their state's in trouble. This isn't just Traverse City, this is across our nation. I think people will come together and they know that there's some things hard things that we all have to do. I know my wife and I did it, and I appreciate the little repartee that was going on between a couple of you commissioners. It kind of reminded me of the kitchen table, like, am I going to buy that new power drill that I could have used to do my own brakes in my garage? And my wife didn't want me to spend the money there, and I didn't want her to buy such and such. But we worked it out, and we didn't go into debt. Or if we had a little bit of debt, we worked like crazy to pay it off. Because one thing that we kind of taught our kids, and it was kind of religious, we said that Jesus really frowns upon sin and debt. You think about it, it really makes an impact on your life. It made an impact on our life, and we didn't overextend ourselves. We learned to live within our means. We didn't do like a lot of people today, they don't have a delayed gratification. Like you get a little money and, boy, let's put that down, and, we got whatever it is that you can't live without. But I don't really see a solution for the county here except, I think Mr. Benda mentioned it, cut. I know that's a hard thing that some of you, but that's why people elected you, to do the hard things, right? I know the tendency is going to be kind of forestall, try to make the ends meet, try to keep up the same level of services. I did a little survey about 5 years ago when I was in Lansing. I was there visiting a friend, and I had some time, and I said, I'm going to go to house office door visiting state reps and just asking if I could catch a state rep, which that's almost impossible to do, but I talked to most of the staff, and I asked the question, the state's in trouble financially, what would you be willing to do? And then I gave them some options, 10 or 15% pay cut. Now, none of it, they realize that times are hard. They're hard. There's always going to be hard times, but they also realize that, they would do things like this. And I think what made impression on them is that if they felt that the pain was shared with other people, it's not just them making up a balance of shortages in money to operate, but if you can communicate that to your constituencies out there, that the pain is being shared, that goes a long way. Our country is really in deep financial problems. I don't have to tell you that. You've known it. You're seeing it played out locally.
Matthew, can you
share that pain? Am I done?
Finish it up, please.
All right. Just one last thing. I was just going to say something about Keynesian economics here, is that I'm not a Keynesian. The whole idea of Keynesian economics is that debt is a good thing because it's money we owe ourselves. That's a falsity. That's the trick, because you could buy so much now and put it off. And if our county has to do the bond vote, I'd be all for it. And I realize some of you don't feel that way, but give me the option, give me the choice. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Jerry?
Good afternoon. Geraldine Green, 214 East 11th Street. I am a city taxpayer and a county taxpayer. It seems obvious to me after sitting through this informative meeting this afternoon that probably tonight you are going to take $1 million from your fund balance and you are going to have a balanced budget without making significant cuts. If you do decide to do a bond, when I came in here a little late this afternoon, I did see the Tea Party here. So I'm sure you're all well aware that there will be a petition drive, 45 days, I understand, to do it. And this bond probably would go to a vote of the people, unless I don't understand what yellow means. The other thing, I've been watching the County Board of Commissioners meet, and last week, I saw you unanimously give up tax dollars for several years for 2 projects in the city of Traverse City. How many tax dollars can you give away before you start finding yourselves even deeper in debt than you are today? It's time to rethink what we willingly give and easily between the City Commission and the County Commission. How many dollars have been given away in the last 15 or 20 years? Many of those tax dollars which the county could have been collecting. And you willingly, I've never seen anyone in the county say, we don't want you doing these projects that take money away from libraries, the county, TBA, the Commission on Aging, and other entities. They are all now looking for dollars, and most of us know where those dollars are going. We love our downtown, but how many dollars can we shift to that small area of this community? It's time to start thinking about it. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jerry.
Jerry, you used to be mayor of Traverse City, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
It's good to have you still here and talking and helping us out.
Thank you very much.
Other public comment? Seeing none, a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Well, let's stick around.
You stick around and I'm going to...